there's something that's making it a lot easier for certain floating home buyers to be able to move forward and buy a house this year, and for some sellers to get their homes sold. That's a big change from last summer. I'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. The whole thing's going to take less than 4 minutes. I just wanted to give you a quick market update about the floating home market in Portland. So far this year, the sales volume has been higher than normal. I would have expected to see between about 22 and 35 home sales so far this year. Through the first half of the year, through the end of June, there have been 38. Last year, it was similar. The summer before, it was similar in that the sales volume was higher than average, higher than it had been, but during the past 2 summers, there was a lot more for sale. As of the end of June last year and the year before, we had about 73 floating homes for sale. That made some sellers think, especially if their homes weren't selling, that the market was really sluggish. They figured that it was following what was going on land. The story on land is totally different, by the way, but what was going on though was there was a lot for sale. So it felt sluggish. At 73, that's a ton of floating homes for sale. At 63, as of the end of June, it's higher than normal. I would have expected to see between about 40 and 55 floating homes for sale as of the end of June. But it gives enough for buyers to choose from. They're out and about and looking at floating homes and buying floating homes, as evidenced by the sales volume so far this year. But it's not an additional 10 or so floating homes for sale, which cuts back on the competition for sellers. It makes it feel a lot like a normal market, which it pretty much is. It's just the number for sale is a little higher than normal, and the sales volume is a little bit higher than normal. The big news for both buyers and sellers of floating homes this year is that one of the lenders who changed their policy last year to not include float work in the price of a purchase that would be done after closing. That is, you could buy the house, close on the purchase, the money would be held at the title company, and the float builder would be paid after closing to have the float work done. They decided to stop doing that. Well, they resumed this year. They also resumed making loans to people who are buying a floating house as a second home. So that's great news. There's also a third lender of the 3 that has resumed on a selective case-by-case basis, making loans even if float work would be needed for the float to qualify for financing for the house. That is, the float has to be in good enough shape. They have resumed also. So that is huge positive good news for the floating home market. That's going to help certain sellers who have houses that have a float under it. Say if you have a house that has a float under it that rates a 2, and a 2 doesn't qualify for financing as it is, and you can have float work done to bring it up to be a 4 on a scale where 5 is the highest. And I have a video that covers what a float is and float inspection reports and things, if you want to check that out. They have resumed, that lender has resumed lending and including float work in the price of the sale. The float work would be done after the fact, after closing, and you can move forward and buy the house. It's great news for sellers. It's great news for buyers. If you have any questions at all about the floating home market or the regular market for single family homes or condos, etc. on land, call me anytime. I'm John. Give me a call. I'll answer. We'll talk. Call me.